My best friend, his girlfriend, and me is a story about friendship, growing up, and learning that loving someone doesn't mean refusing to let them change. Ollie and Matsu have been best friends since childhood. So when Matsu falls for Rebecca, Ollie sees the relationship as a threat to the life they've always shared. But by the end, Ollie realizes that the real problem was never Rebecca. It was his fear of losing his best friend. From the beginning, Ollie and Matsu built their entire adult lives around each other. They worked together, lived together, partied together, and spent years planning a year-long trip around the world. To Ollie, that trip represents their freedom. He sees people like Spiti, who settled down, got married, and moved into a house with Antje, as examples of what happens when adulthood takes over. So when Matsu meets Rebecca, Ollie becomes suspicious. Rebecca is not trying to destroy Matsu's friendship with Ollie. She just wants a relationship with him that feels like a normal two-person relationship. She wants her own apartment with Matsu, time alone with him, and a future together. Ollie interprets all of that as Rebecca taking Matsu away from him. That is why he constantly interferes, embarrasses Rebecca, challenges her to ridiculous competitions, and even tries to stop Matsu from moving in with her. However, Ollie is doing exactly what he accuses Rebecca of doing. He claims she's controlling Matsu while he's trying to control Matsu's decisions himself. The biggest turning point comes when Matsu admits that he isn't sure he wants the life he and Ollie planned anymore. He still loves his best friend, but he started imagining something different with Rebecca. Ollie initially assumes Rebecca manipulated Matsu into abandoning the trip, but Matsu makes it clear that the decision is coming from him. He likes his relationship, he likes his job more than Ollie thinks he does, and he is beginning to wonder whether spending an entire year away from Rebecca is what he wants. Ollie can't accept this. For him, Matsu changing his mind feels like a betrayal of their childhood friendship. That's why Ollie creates the small world trip around the city. He takes Matsu through fake versions of Thailand, Siberia, Mexico, Mongolia, Africa, and Tierra del Fuego, hoping to remind him of everything they dreamed about doing together. For a moment, it works. Matsu admits a real-world trip would be exciting. But when Rebecca discovers what they've been doing, she reaches her breaking point. She realizes that Matsu is still allowing Ollie to dominate his life, and she breaks up with him. Rebecca's breakup is not really about the trip itself. She's told Matsu that if traveling the world is his dream, he should go. What she can't accept is feeling like she's competing with Ollie for Matsu's attention. Rebecca tells Matsu that she wants an adult relationship, while he seems happiest when he's behaving like a child with Ollie. And from her perspective, there is some truth to that. Matsu allowed Ollie to interfere with their relationship instead of setting boundaries himself. So when Rebecca walks away, Matsu is devastated. But the breakup also forces Ollie to confront the consequences of his behavior. After Rebecca leaves, Matsu tells Ollie that their living arrangement has to end. Ollie spent the entire story trying to protect their friendship, but his behavior actually damaged it. Matsu realizes that he can't build a life with Rebecca or even figure out what kind of life he wants while Ollie is constantly standing between them. Ollie leaves, and for the first time, the two friends are separated. This is the moment when Ollie has to grow up. The person who helps Ollie understand everything is Pia, the woman who takes his unused world trip ticket. Pia sees through him. She calls Ollie a Peter Pan type, someone who refuses to grow up. She explains that Ollie was so obsessed with keeping his friendship with Matsu the way it was that he stopped noticing who Matsu became. That's the lesson Ollie has been avoiding. Matsu is allowed to change. Their friendship began when they were children, but that doesn't mean they have to remain the same people forever. Ollie realizes that he wasn't really fighting Rebecca. He was fighting the idea that his best friend could have a life that didn't revolve around him. Ollie decides to make things right. He goes to Rebecca's dental practice under the name Peter Pan, knowing she probably wouldn't agree to see him otherwise. He even undergoes a dental procedure without anesthesia just to prove how serious he is about apologizing. For most of the movie, Ollie refuses to admit that he is the problem. Now he tells Rebecca that she was right. He interfered with her relationship with Matsu because he was afraid of losing his best friend. But Ollie also knows that Matsu still loves Rebecca. So instead of trying to get Matsu back for himself, he helps Matsu and Rebecca get back together. Ollie arranges for the two of them to meet. They realize that neither of them wanted the relationship to end. Rebecca is also willing to compromise. She offers Matsu the apartment she found for them and even agrees to deal with the damage caused by Ollie's disastrous sandwich-making accident. This time, Matsu and Rebecca are choosing each other themselves. Ollie is no longer standing between them, and that's what allows the relationship to work. Ollie finally takes the world trip. He already bought his ticket, but he's facing the possibility of traveling alone. Then Pia arrives. She bought the extra ticket and is ready to go with him. Matze comes to the airport to say goodbye. The two friends acknowledge how strange it feels because they barely spent any time apart since childhood, but instead of trying to stop Matze from moving forward, Ollie accepts that they can be best friends without having to do everything together. Ollie boards the plane with Pia. At the beginning, Ollie believes growing up means becoming boring like Schmitty. By the end, he learns that growing up doesn't mean giving up adventure. It means allowing other people to have their own lives. The movie then jumps forward and reveals that Ollie and Pia get married. Ollie explains that the turning point came in Iceland. They were near a freezing lake waiting to rent wetsuits to see the northern lights when Pia jumped into the freezing water. For Ollie, that was the moment he realized she was the right person for him. Pia is the person who matches Ollie's adventurous personality. Their relationship works because they share the same appetite for adventure. The movie ends with one final joke involving Schmitty. Antje discovers his secret marijuana stash and throws him out. So Schmitty turns up at Matze and Rebecca's new home, asking if he can stay with them. Rebecca agrees, and Schmitty announces that he'll take Ollie's old room. Matze jokes that Rebecca must be the problem after all, because she once complained that she was always trapped in a three-person relationship. It's a fitting final joke because the movie spent the entire story turning the idea of a relationship between three people into a source of chaos. But now the situation is harmless. Ollie moved on, Matze and Rebecca have their own relationship, and Schmitty is temporarily occupying the empty space Ollie left behind. The movie's message is that growing up doesn't mean abandoning your friends or losing the adventurous person you used to be. It means accepting that friendships evolve, relationships change, and everyone has the right to choose their own future. And in the end, Ollie gets what he was afraid of losing, his best friend still in his life, but no longer dependent on him.